We have been out since about 4:30 this morning. The great men and women of law enforcement have been working on this operation for days and days and probably weeks. Early this morning, one of the top leaders of MS-13 was apprehended. He was the leader for the East Coast, one of the top 3 in the entire country. Right here in Virginia, living half an hour outside of Washington, D.C. He is an illegal alien from El Salvador, and he will not be living in our country much longer. He's in custody this morning. One of the top leaders right here near our nation's capital. I just cannot thank Governor Youngkin enough for his leadership in this effort. This has been a joint effort with state and local agencies. FBI Director Patel, thank you so much.
Trend Day, see you later. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. There you heard Attorney General Pam Bondi arrest this morning of one of the top 3 fellows leading Trend Day Agua, leading the East Coast, arrested just miles from the nation's capital. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel were on the scene this morning at 4:30. Take a listen.
First reaction is all of our law enforcement officers are safe. That was the number one thing. They're safe. They executed a clean, safe operation, and the bad guys in custody. And thanks to the FBI, we got one of the worst of MS-13 off the streets this morning.
We were able to be out here in force to show the American people, to be here in person, that this means a lot to her and the mission. Safety is our primary concern of these communities, and we effectuated that today.
Great on Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, getting some work done in between, hopefully releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files, maybe investigating the 2020 election, maybe investigating Christopher Wray and Bill Barr and the rest of the folks. But nonetheless, we're not going to rain on the parade. Anytime a gang member is taking up the streets, a killer, it's a great day for America. It's great to see the FBI is back to doing the work of the American people, and not the work of politicians raiding the homes of school board parents and leading presidential candidates and their staff members, trying to make people's life hell. But nonetheless, it's time for Pam Bondi and Kash Patel to get to work. Get us those Epstein documents that we've been waiting years for. Get us the declassification documents that President Trump just declassified on Crossfire Hurricane that we're going to be talking to John Solomon about tomorrow here on this show. We hope you'll join us for that as well. But 4 years later, we still don't have those documents that were already declassified by President Trump. So there's so much work for this DOJ and FBI to get done. As I said, we're not going to rain on their parade. Anytime you take a criminal killer off the street, it's a great day for America. Looking towards some foreign policy, just about 3,200 miles to the east of us sits Paris. You're wondering what's happening in Paris. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky recently sat down for an interview with the Kyiv Independent. Now, Zelensky, who says he's been trying to end this war, wants to end this war after that botched meeting with Donald Trump at the White House, had some choice words to say in this interview. It doesn't sound like a man who wants to end the war. Take a listen to what he had to say about Vladimir Putin.
But it also depends on his age. He will die soon, and that's a fact, and it will come to an end. And it could come to an end even before he ends his absolutely safe and historically lost life.
So now, as far as we're concerned, that was propaganda from Vladimir Zelensky. We have no indication or news to break to you that Vladimir Putin is indeed sick, that Vladimir Putin is indeed dying. Very odd statement. I guess it's a statement of fact. The day we're born, we all start to die. You and I, as we sit here right now, we're dying. So, but the way he had made it seem that it's expedited and it's going to happen imminently, and I'm not entirely sure where he got that from, what intel. I'm sure it's just Vladimir Zelensky being deceitful as usual, trying to prolong this war, trying to prolong more of his troops dying on the battlefield. Not entirely sure why Vladimir Zelensky wants that, but I think that's what he's virtue signaling. Our guest today is Tony Shaffer. He's the president of Project Sentinel. There's so much to talk about. 3-letter agencies, the gutting of them. We were promised that these things would be overhauled. Doesn't seem like that's happening. So much to take up. Tony Shaffer is our guest today. Tony, as always, it's great to have you with us on the Great America Show. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us on this beautiful day in America. I want to start with first the mess that it seems is going on inside of the DOD, inside the 3-letter agencies. What is going on? We were promised change inside these agencies. It seems like we've still got status quo.
Well, John, thank you for having me. We're 2 months in, and the deep state gets a vote. Remember what? I'm a guy that's gone into combat, and there's a saying in the military: no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy, because the enemy has a vote. And so I think what you're seeing here is the enemy voting, and they're voting by distracting, by slowing down, by doing things like including Jeffrey Goldberg and things. I don't think that was random. I don't think that was accidental. I think that was meant to have a bad effect. I think at this point, many of the things we're going to witness has to do with them catching up. They've been moving so fast. That is the Trump folks that they have a hard time staying ahead of them. They're doing now, Trump folks, what I think they should have done last time. I'd recommended to Mike Flynn, you got to go in, you got to knock things over, you got to be very deliberate. Mike said, oh, no, we're going to be friendly. Okay, well, we all saw how that worked out.
Yeah.
So I think this unfriendly approach is good, but it's going to have downsides. And to your point, people are going to fight back, and they're just now, the resistance is starting to resist.
I was told by somebody off the record, not off the record, but not to the record to disclose the source, that the use of the Signal app has these people who are still inside these 3-letter agencies, these deep staters still inside there, pissed off because it doesn't let them leak as easily as they were able to before. How do we still have these people, Tony, inside these agencies infiltrating the same?
Because you have.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I have to be careful because I consult with people who are making decisions on this right now. And I've said you got to go down 2 levels. You got to fire everybody at the top 2 levels. Just be done with it. Now, I know there's a lot of firing going on already. And within the context of what they're doing, they've gone for the low-hanging fruit, like USAID, get rid of it.
Exactly.
IRS, get rid of it. Yeah. Exactly. But now you got to get to the point of where you start cutting, you start surgically removing things. So I will make an argument that I may have to destroy one day, just saying. But within the intelligence and security apparatus, you've got to kind of be surgical because you still have people who know what they're doing and want to do the right thing. So the idea of just slashing the top tier, you might actually cut something you need. So I understand kind of taking a step back and being a bit more deliberative on, okay, we've got all these guys you're talking about, all the deep staters, all the Alex Vindmans, all those knuckleheads, they're still there, and they're kind of going to burrow in. They're going to try to camouflage themselves. They're going to look like, oh, I'm just another normal guy. I'm not Loris Lerner. Don't look at me. So you got to kind of peel away the camouflage, and you got to start snipping them out, or I don't know. I used to have a dog, you got to get the tick out and the head out. You got to do that, but it's going to take more time. So if I were the guy in charge, if I were Tulsi Gabbard, I would allow things to kind of settle down a bit, and then about May, June, I'd start sending in. Can I say hunter killer? I guess I can say hunter killer squads, not to kill them. Nobody's going to kill anybody, but it's a metaphor. Don't get upset. Don't complain to John. It's a metaphor. Hunter killer squads to go figuring out who's buried in, where the camp. So, but you know what I'm saying, and I think the audience knows what I'm saying. You got to get to that point of where you start going after them.
Let me ask you a question. So, out of the 30,000 or so people who work at the Pentagon, how many of them are actually top tier people who make decisions? Top tier people who are privy to the top knowledge? 1,000 people, 500 people?
No. So there's the layers of knowledgeability.
Yeah.
There's classified programs within classified programs. And even the acknowledging of certain programs is classified. So I just have to be a little bit careful because that's part of what I want Pete Hegseth to do. My friend Kurt Weldon. Kurt and I have spoken about a number of things we want to have declassified regarding Able Danger 9/11. So for that level, the level we're talking there's probably, I don't know, maybe 100 in all of Washington. There are deep secrets, and between Congress, like you only know that only the principals, like the team of 8. It's like the House Armed Services, the House Intelligence, the leaders of the House, Senate Armed Services, Senate Intelligence, leaders of the Senate. That's it. I mean, it's that tightly controlled. Then you have a similar number of people in the Pentagon. There are programs like that. But the question becomes, who's kind of knowledgeable and decision makers? And I sat there in 2004. It was in 2005. I was attached to the U.S. Navy, to their internal think tank called Deep Blue. And I hated being in the building. I hate being in the Pentagon, for the record. And I sat outside. There's a place called Ground Zero. It's like a little cafe in the middle. It's in the open area. It's called Ground Zero because that's where the Russians had their aiming points for the nuclear weapons and for Washington back during the Cold War. And John, I'd sit there, I watch people. It's like, what the hell do you all do? Because I knew what I was doing. I was working for Navy leadership. I was there because of Army leadership. And so I'm trying to figure out, literally you get, to your point, thousands of people kind of coming and going. And I would argue that maybe 5% of those people actually are engaged in real decision-making and activities. The rest of them, I think it's a form of social welfare. And I'm going to get in trouble for saying it, but it's kind of the truth. They don't need to be there.
So you just made my point exactly. If it's 5%, it's a very small fraction of that 30,000. Okay?
Exactly.
Why is it so hard for Pete Hegseth to bring in 10 Tony Schaffers and say, you are to review 50 to 100 of these people. If they're no good, I want to know why they're no good. They're out of here. It's not that hard of a task to not have to deal with this nonsense that we're going to have to deal with. Trump will be impeached again. Mark my words. If we lose the Congress, he will be impeached.
Yeah, I'm with you. So the easy way to do it, to me, is first off, besides that 30,000 people, you have contractors. You have Boeing, General Dynamics. All these contractors that make stuff also put butts in seats. They're assistants. There's what we would call step-in fetches. And so, I would first off just cut all those contracts. Like, here, you're done. I don't know if you knew this, John. They make McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, for every butt they put in a seat. These people make a lot of money. They make between $120,000 to $180,000.
Yeah.
Each corporation who does that gets $100,000 above that.
Yeah.
So you're talking about $250,000 per person of someone who's basically someone who's an admin. So I would just chop that. It's like, this is done. We're done with this. Stop it. I chop that all out. Get rid of that. And then, to your point, over a year, I would do it again to be deliberate, to give people a say. I think due process is important. I'd give people a year. It's like, okay, we're going to have boards to review every position, what we call in the Army TDA. TDA positions are those above a brigade, essentially in the Army. And I would go through and review every one of those for validity and competence. Is it valid? Is the person competent? That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, because there are, like you said, the Vindmans of the world. They're still there. They're probably recording conversations of Donald Trump talking to world leaders, taking things out of context, cut and paste. Hey, Mr. Putin, can you do me a favor? And then, cut a whole conversation out. And the real conversation says, can you stop killing all those Ukrainians? And then, it's like it's the same thing that's going to happen that happened with Vindman. And again, because there's people with severe,
no doubt.
It's not even a joke at this point anymore, Tony. These people are mentally sick. I know so many people who are Democrats who, when I talk politics with them, they get red in the face. They start screaming and acting completely unhinged. These are sick people. They're not people who think level-headed mental-wise, and they're running around our Pentagon. They're running around the NSC. I want to know now how many of them are working for Mike Waltz.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we're going to hopefully come to find a little bit of clarity on regarding the whole adding Jeff Goldberg to that chat. So to that point, though, you're going to have people who are considered professional staffers. And this is the issue. And this is why Mike, by the way, first off, cleared out most of the NSC to begin with. So whoever's left there is kind of selected. So, okay, who of the selected now is still working for the other side? Because some of them still are. During the first go-round, John, I knew this, Lou knew this too, that there were people who were picked by Trump who were not loyal to Trump. And part of my job back then as an advisor, I was an outside advisor. I was advising a number of senior administration officials. I had access to the White House, met people at the White House. And my job, I actually offered up a plan to try to basically do a Cold War style, I need to be careful because of the terminology, basically an operation that would be designed to do controlled leaks and find out who was leaking. There was a way of doing it. I don't want to get into it. It would take too long to explain. But we offered that up. And it's like people went like, it's like, yeah, we can do this. It'll probably surprise you who's leaking. And so I don't think they wanted to know. I don't think the first Trump White House really wanted to know how badly they were infiltrated. Just saying. So we didn't do the op, but we offered it. It's like, hey, this is how we would do it. And I had approval of very senior cabinet level people to do it. It was some of the other folks who were maybe not loyal to the president were just like, yeah, we don't want to do this. So I do believe that while not as severe, you still have that problem of people who are on the inside wanting to leak or who are leaking. It's going to be a problem. So again, they're 2 months in. I would give them the benefit of 90 days. Give them another month before I start being critical of their process. But they need to start doing something to secure the internal communications. And I've said this on other media, on Newsmax. There's a certain point, John, that you just have to communicate. I actually have used the example. I had to brief the chairman of the Joint Chiefs on an issue above top secret. It was above top secret. It was very sensitive, and I briefed him on it in the middle of a football stadium, surrounded by people that nobody could hear us. It was that noisy. But it's like, I don't have time to grab the cone of silence. Sorry. We just got to do it here. And we did it. And we had the conversation. Nobody heard us because it was so damn noisy. So I actually looked around at the stadium, and I'm next to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, like, I cannot believe we're doing this. But you just got to communicate. You got to pick a point and do it. There's a point of diminishing returns where you've got to just get the job done. And so, yeah, it was a Jack Bauer moment. You're out there in the middle. You got to brief the guy. You got to be done with it. So you can't do everything to an infinite level of known security. At a certain point, you just got to communicate. But I hope they get better at doing what they're doing.
Yeah, they have no choice. I want to take a quick break here, folks. We're talking with Tony Shaffer. He's the president of Project Sentinel. You've probably seen him on Newsmax probably like 4 or 5 times a day, taking a little break to join us here on the Great America Show. When we return, I want to take up the regurgitation of garbage that we continue to see in D.C., whether it be the people, the staffers, the programs used, all of that. We also have a conflict of interest, in my opinion, and we're going to take that up with Tony. On the other side of this quick break, we're coming right back with Tony Shaffer. Folks, stay with us.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupting this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our spring percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Folks, we're back with Tony Shaffer, president of Project Sentinel. Tony, I have a question for you. So we're told the information in the Signal group chat is not classified information. Now, say further down the road, it comes out that it is classified information. Jeffrey Goldberg put this all out on the internet, obviously to embarrass President Trump and the administration. Is he guilty of espionage?
So the answer is it depends. I've worked with FBI agents and DOJ on a couple of things. You can stretch things quite a bit. I used to work something called the counter drug operations against the cartels and mafia, which we're going back to finally. And there's something called parallel construction. So once you get a tip, you can go look at other things that will enlighten your investigation. So there's things they could do to kind of do that with him if they wanted. I don't think they will. But let's talk about Goldberg for a second. I understand the reticence of including him as a figure because he's the guy, and John, that we need to remember, he's the guy that tried to tell us that Al-Qaeda was hanging out with Saddam Hussein using his golden toilets in his big old mansions. Yeah. It wasn't true. But Goldberg helped convince people to go to war against Iraq in 2003. He's also the sucker and losers reporter. He's the guy that reported that President Trump, so this guy has no integrity. So there was a reason. This was not accidental. I want your audience to understand whatever happened here was not an accident. Someone intended for this to happen. Now, are the outcomes what they wanted? I don't know. But I can tell you that including Goldberg in this way was meant to have an effect. Is it having the effect they wanted? That I don't know yet. But it goes back to your questions, the first part of this interview. People need to be looking at all this because there's links, there's inconvenient links of individuals being involved in this whole fiasco that tells me you need to have a much deeper investigation of it. So would it be an investigation by Kash Patel regarding leaks? I would encourage that if I were Kash. So
let's talk about one of those connections. Just so happens that Catherine Maher, who's the CEO of NPR, is also the chair of board of directors for that app Signal. How is it, Tony?
Yeah.
Whether it's the judges in D.C., the district judges, the same 3 district judges who are running the same cases against Donald Trump, whether it be the staffers who are still floating in the ballots from the last administration, whether it be the politicos, the Jeffrey Goldbergs of the world, or the Catherine Mahers of the world, how do we continue to have this regurgitation of garbage?
This talks to a longer-term severing of the deep state brain trust. Because you asked me about the Pentagon and who really works well. You have a similar thing regarding the deep state. You've got a few folks, I would argue they all kind of are connected to Barack Obama if you look close enough. Valerie Jarrett and Susan Rice have been his demons, his little deputy demons that go out and do his bidding, and they all link together. And you'll find these people have lunches together, they have dinners, and they all kind of run in that circle. And that way, it's very controlled. It's similar. I'm going to say this and get in trouble. It's similar to what Hitler did with industry during the 30s. Hitler figured out, I'm not going to be able to control everything, but I can control a few people, and they can control everything else. So this is a very similar, I'm just going to say it, fascist philosophy, because they always call it fascist, like, no. You're the fascist. This is because we see it here. We see the pattern. And to your point, she's on the board of Signal. She directed Wikipedia for years. And she had the temerity, John, to say, we don't focus on the truth. We focus on what we think the truth should be. It'll help us get things done. I'm paraphrasing what she said, but that is. And by the way, I know it to be a fact because my Wikipedia page is always effed up. You can go over there right now, and you, the person you know me to be, is completely different if you read Wikipedia. According to them, I'm some unknown lieutenant colonel who had a bad attitude and had no credibility in the 9/11 attacks. Yet, Lou's put it out before. We've had all this evidence. More is about to come out. But according to them, I'm a disgruntled employee. That's what, because that's the narrative they want to put forward.
Did they accuse you of being a drunk too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, of course.
It's like nuts.
Of course.
Look, I mean, at a point, I'm coming up on 35 years of sobriety in June. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't drink, dude. Sorry. Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, back in the 80s, I drank a lot. Oh, yeah. I was like a fish, but I'm just telling you. But you hit the nail on the head. They'll take one item and say, oh, this is who he is. It's like, no, they won't put, I've got Walter Jones, my friend Walter Jones, read my career into the congressional record. Nope, won't put it on there. Yeah. It doesn't meet their editorial standard.
Yeah.
What? A congressional record. So that's my point. She is the grandmother who does this editing. So if she's that, just take this from an intelligence officer. If she is that deceptive in a job regarding information, do you really think she's going to be honest at her job at Signal? Do you really think she's going to change things at NPR to make it fair and balanced?
No.
Just asking, because I don't think so.
And just to go back and preface what you said, Tony, most of your work, correct me if I'm wrong, but your intel work that you did that has made the news headlines was done after 2000, 2001. So that is way after that 35-year period. Full disclosure, I didn't even know you were 35 years sober. Congratulations. I offered Tony a drink last month when I saw him, and he declined. So I could attest that Tony's
That's true. That's true.
Bad behavior.
That's true.
But no, that's what they do to you, Tony. I spoke to Russ Tice yesterday. Yeah. Same thing to him. They make it like,
I love Rice.
Right. You're a mental patient, Tony. You're not mentally fit. You're a psychopath. But the real psychopaths are these people who gaslight. They're sociopaths. Oh, yeah. They're people who they look in the mirror, Tony, and they lie to themselves and they believe the lie. That's the people that we're supposed to trust that tell us Tony Shaffer's a bad dude. I mean, it's like a schizophrenia.
It's insane. Literally insane. And by the way, so the beauty of Trump, John, is that he's fearless. He doesn't care about what they think, because in the old days, people were always a little bit worried about what are they going to say about me? I want to try to appease them and get along with them. Trump doesn't care. Most of the people who work for Trump, I don't care. I mean, it's like, yeah, you said the worst about me. I just don't care at this point. So I think it's going to take that I just don't give a damn. Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn attitude to get things changed. And I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, we have no choice, Tony, because if we listen to what they'd say, you go out there and read articles on Lou Dobbs, and I saw one yesterday, and it said like racist, xenophobe.
No, he was seeking the truth. He was clear-eyed about the truth.
I've heard people make comments around Lou that were borderline racist, and Lou would stop them in their tracks and say, and completely reprimand them. And to read these things, it's like,
of course,
stand-up people that they try to ruin their lives because these people are just so sick and absolutely deranged. I want to turn to, Tony, before we get to break here, Crossfire Hurricane documents. President Trump saying today that we're going to see the 2020 election was rigged when he declassifies all these documents, saying, quote, there was an election that I won by a lot. You're going to find out. The documents are there. The numbers are there. We won by a lot. We won 3 elections, and we did very well in the second one. These documents were given to John Solomon, and I'm going to talk to John Solomon tomorrow. But these documents were given to John Solomon, then taken back, and now given back in this. And some of them are still, I'm being told, are going to be classified. What do you think we find out in the Crossfire Hurricane documents that we don't already know?
Well, there's 2 things I think I think it's more about confirmation of theories and beliefs. So, and John, we've talked about this, and Lou and I talked about this, and Jesse Morgan, the palette of ballots guy. I think we're going to come to find that.
I'd love to have him on the show.
I'm still trying to get him to come on. I've reached out to Jesse. We'll see what he says. The problem is this. I think we're going to come to find that Jesse Morgan was not unique. I think we're going to come to find that there were probably a dozen or more similar operations, because what they were doing, and I've talked about this with you and Lou, the Democrats had to have artifacts prepared to dump into the system. That is to say, they knew that Trump was going to have an overwhelming number of people come vote. And so they picked wisely, and this is where they were brilliant or evil. They picked a few of the swing states where they knew it would be very close. The margins were very close. And so they were prepared to both take over systems electronically, to have digitization, to basically be able to fudge the numbers, the big drops and whatever, the big curves, like the middle of the night, there's the spike. And then they had to have something to go with the spike. So they had to have people prepared with artifacts, the ballots, to dump into the system, which they did in Philadelphia. So I think we're going to come to find that was all happening in multiple locations. And by the way, it was no accident that I was stopped by the Attorney General. I mean, this is something I still think, and I've encouraged them to investigate. As a matter of fact, if I talk to Cash, he needs to actually examine the role of the Attorney General, because I think not only did they have the system set up to do this, people like Barr were involved. I think, and I'm just going to say it for the record, I think Bill Barr was part of the cover-up of the 2020 cheat.
Yeah, I think
it is what it is.
Especially after hearing.
And so
go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to come to find. We're going to come to find people we suspected to be involved were involved. I think the other thing we're going to come to find is that that the FBI knew. The FBI knew in detail what was going on, and yet it was all shoved aside and ignored. And so the thing I think that ought to come out of this, because I think John Solomon, I love John. I tell John, I said, hey, I think we're going to come to find that John's going to be able to confirm all of the beliefs of what happened. But more importantly, John and you and me, but I'll have to put pressure on Cash to prosecute people for doing this. If you don't prosecute people, they're going to do it again. You got to send people to jail, period. Because this, and by the way, we were all made to look like we're nuts because we said, no, there's something wrong with the 2020 election. And we were all, to your point, by Catherine Marr and all these other folks, oh, you're crazy. You're election deniers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I'm actually going to absolutely talk about that with John. It's disappointing and sad. For everyone who doesn't know who Jesse Morgan is, you can go to my Twitter, John Fawcett NY. I've got the video up there, the interview he did with the great Lou Dobbs. One of the only people who was willing to have him on TV. What does that tell you about what you need to know?
Yeah.
Tony also got a very interesting phone call. I don't know if you mentioned this, from William Barr. That only furthers. I don't know if you want to tell the audience what he said to you, but
yeah, I'll do a quick. So yeah, just a very brief thing. I was hired by Bernie Carrick to come in and work with the Armistead Project to do investigations, to basically handle whistleblowers. I'm a whistleblower. We were intaking whistleblowers. One of the whistleblowers was Jesse Morgan. He called the Pennsylvania Republican Party hotline saying, I think I saw something. As a matter of fact, I think I was involved. And so he had great courage. We put together an op. I was on a private plane going up to do a cold interview with the guy. We vetted him. Turned out, to make a long story very short, he was valid. We spent time. We brought a red team of former postmasters to basically tell us how the postal system works in the blind. Didn't tell them about Jesse Morgan. Just said, how does it work? Right. And then we said, well, we have a whistleblower saying, this is what happened. Is it possible? And man, oh man, they all turned white. It's like, yeah, that could be done. And so we validated everything. And then we went public. You can still see the interview where I get up on stage and I'm talking about what we found. And it was literally the day after that, John, that I'm sitting there. I went through my friend and mentor, Ed Neese. Ed and I are still friends. I told Ed what we had. It's like, Ed, we need to brief Bill Barr on the fact that we have found a real provable point of election fraud, massive fraud, as in like 640,000 ballots of fraud. So Ed Neese, God bless Ed, said, yeah, I believe you. I trust you. I'm gonna call Bill. So Ed Neese, former Attorney General, President Reagan, calls Bill Barr and says, hey, Tony Shaffer needs to meet with you. He's got a valid investigation of fraud. So he wants to brief you. So it's like, Ed calls me. He said, oh, I just talked to Bill. Here's his deputy. Call his deputy to set up a time to go see him. Great. I figure my job is halfway done, right, John? You got the meeting. So I figure, wow, we're finally going to get something on the radar of DOJ to pay attention. Not 5 minutes later, Bill Barr calls me. Hey, Tony, what's going on? Hey, well, I explained to him what's going on. He says, you will turn Mr. Morgan over to me immediately. You are interfering with my investigation. What? You aren't investigating squat. It's like, no, you will turn him over to the FBI today at 2:00. I said, no, I will not. First off, he's got to get whistleblower protection. No, he's not a whistleblower. Secondly, he's got information which I consider to be something you all would try to suppress. Oh, no, we're never going to suppress it. Oh, okay. So I fight Bill Barr. I said, and I'm telling you for the record, and I told John Salomon this too. John and I have had this conversation. I refuse to comply. I will not turn over Mr. Morgan to you without him having legal representation and whistleblower status. That is not negotiable. Until it happens, I will not turn him over. 10 minutes later, I was fired.
Oh my.
Bill Barr called Rudy Giuliani, who called Bernie and got me fired. It's like, and I tried to explain to him, it's like, no, you don't understand. This is and they were so busy with all the other things, they didn't recognize they were being lied to by Bill Barr. I think, John, I don't think they could believe, they could not believe at the time Bill Barr was lying to them. I think that's how far convinced they were that Bill Barr was on their side. So when it came to me being obstinate, Shaffer's not cooperating, it's like, yeah, I'm not cooperating because we're about to give up a witness to the bad guys.
Yeah. Bill Barr was a good guy because he cleared Trump on Russia collusion. It took him a long time, but cleared him on Russia collusion.
Right.
So he figured, okay, that's our baseline. This man has been honest with us, at least to this point. But the truth of the matter is Bill Barr is not a man. He's a coward. He never investigated, and he lied under oath. He never investigated one instance of election fraud. Not one. He lied under oath, was never held accountable. Now he's nowhere to be found. For anyone who wants to see the real Bill Barr, I often recommend this documentary to people. It's called The Octopus Murders, American Conspiracy on Netflix. And it goes back to how complicit Will Barr is back into the 90s and 2000s and how corrupt our Justice Department is. I want to take one quick break here and come back on a short segment. I want to go into some foreign policy. What the hell's going on in Ukraine and Russia? Sure. A little bit of a deviation, but I'm trying to figure out if this war is ever going to end or Zelensky flees the country before it does. We're coming right back with Tony Shaffer, folks.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Folks, we're back. Tony Shaffer, president of Project Sentinel. Tony, I'm trying to figure out, as we look at everything here at home, what's going on overseas. Yeah. Ukraine and Russia, we have a ceasefire. We don't have a ceasefire. We do. Zelensky says they don't mean it. Putin says they don't mean it. Who's the bad guy here? What's going on?
Well, Zelensky's the bad guy, and he keeps playing both sides against the middle. Basically, there's 2 competing formats for the end of the war. One is the European format. That is the French, the horse-eating socialists showing up with their army and being the peacekeepers. I'm rolling my eyes till they almost fall out of my head. It's like, oh, okay. Or us, the U.S. The U.S. right now is negotiating in Saudi Arabia. And the idea here is we're going to figure out a way to commercialize peace. That is to say, We're going to put the Russians back on the SWIFT system so they can interact and trade with Russia and with the Europeans. And we're going to exploit things together. And then, by the way, we want to decouple Russia from China. Big issue. When China looks at Russia, they see food. It's like they want to gobble up. So it's like Russia knows this too. And we want to also find a way to essentially work with Russia against Iran. Big issues. So that's one. It's basically called Budapest 2. No, not Budapest 2. It's called Istanbul Plus. Istanbul Plus. It's the name of it. They almost had an Istanbul agreement back in 2021. This is the extension of that, and I think that's what they're going to go with. The Europeans want something completely different, and they have bellicose language. They're talking about outproducing the Russians. Like, you haven't done it so far. Do you really think you can do it? And one of the things I find most ironic, John, the Russians are going to invade. It's like, don't you think if the Russians were going to invade, they'd do it now when you're the weakest? Like, do you think they're going to wait and let you arm up? It just, their side is complete. It's like, I just ask people, think for yourself. Think about this. If the Russians were going to do something like that, they do it now when you've been demilitarized. You've given the Ukrainians all your stuff. The Russians just kind of shuffled it aside. If they wanted Europe, they would take it now. And who wants Europe? Nobody wants Europe. No. We don't want Europe. Yeah.
As we saw in that group chat with J.D. Vance, everyone's tired.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But, this may be a novice question, but I asked this to people who are, very well versed in foreign policy. Is it not in our best interest to try to fix our relationship with Russia? We've lied to them since 1990.
Yeah,
We've lied to them and lied to them and lied to them. If we can get Russia and America back to normalized relations, okay, it puts China in a very peculiar place because China cannot move on Taiwan. They cannot move on the Philippines. They cannot move anywhere. I mean, I'm not entirely sold they can move anyway economically, but it doesn't matter. In the next 100 years, they can't do a damn thing. Is it not in our best interest, Tony? Like I said, a very novice question, to try to make peace with Russia, to try to work some economic deals. We help them. They help us. Squash the beef. Stop moving NATO closer to the country as we promised we were going to do in 1990?
John, I agree with you. I think it's important to recognize that everything is linked. Everything you talked about is all linked together. We have to accept that as something of a foundation. There's other things besides Ukraine and Taiwan, the Philippines. All these things are important. The other thing that is coming up is START 2. The START agreement, which ended the Cold War, one of the treaties that ended the Cold War, has to be renegotiated because it expires in February of 2022. Gee, do you want Biden negotiating or Trump? Well, I think Trump's going to be the guy, and thank God he is. So those are big issues we'll have to resolve with the other big nuclear power on the planet. Remember, Russia may be smaller economically, but they are the other big nuclear weapons holder on the planet. We have to accept that for what it is and deal with it as such.
Yeah, something so Tony, we live in a world where common sense is just not used anymore. It's not common. You can, in my opinion, you could fix 75% of the world problems, Tony, not with using your college degree from the naval. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We respect you highly, but your naval degree, your Harvard degree, we could fix 75% of the world's problems, Tony, by just using common sense.
Exactly. I'm with you completely, 100%.
Real quickly, before we wrap up here, a war we have here at home, our southern border. Pete Hegseth is now ordered troops at the U.S. border to start doing missions at the border to dissuade people from considering coming. Fentanyl deaths are actually down, believe it or not, Tony, and cocaine deaths are up. So maybe China's getting the message. I'm not entirely sure. Cocaine is their next best thing when they can't get fentanyl through the border. What do we see at the border real quickly? I know you're short on time.
We're going to send Hunter Biden down to Mexico and see if he can take a dent out of the stock. He'll be deployed into Mexico City, and he'll be our main drug consumer. No, seriously, we're going to be doing military operations against the cartel. We proposed this, by the way, back in the 90s when I was a senior clandestine human intelligence guy for JADF East, which is now JADF South in Key West. We proposed this, and DEA went nuts. Oh, no, we can do it. It's like, you're not going to do it, and they never did. So now we're going to do it. Something we proposed 30 years ago, we're probably going to do now. So God bless Pete, and we're going to jump right into that and start taking out the bad guys, and it's going to have an effect.
Tony Shaffer, we always appreciate your insights joining us here on the Great America Show. We'll talk to you very, very, very soon.
Great. Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us today here on the Great America Show. We hope to see you back here tomorrow for the Great America Show. Our guest, as I said, will be Just the News' editor-in-chief, John Solomon. He joins us to break down all the Crossfire Hurricane documents and what we could expect declassification-wise going forward. We hope to see you for that tomorrow here on the Great America Show. Until then, folks, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. We'll see you tomorrow.